Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because what if I told you that a coin that looks just like any other quarter sitting in your change jar right now, could secretly be worth more money than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes? I am not exaggerating, I am not clickbaiting you, I am telling you the cold, hard, jaw-dropping truth. And by the time this video is over, you are going to want to run to every coin jar, every old drawer, every forgotten piggy bank in your house, because today we are talking about the 1997 D Washington quarter, and this is not just any quarter, this is the kind of coin that makes collectors lose sleep at night. The kind of coin that is sold for figures so astronomical that even seasoned numismatists had to do a double take. The kind of coin that proves, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that real treasure is not buried in some distant jungle or locked in a bank vault. It is hiding in plain sight, right here in everyday American pocket change. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do yourself a favor and stick with me all the way to the end of this video, because after we finish with this incredible 1997 D quarter, we are moving on to two more Washington quarters that are going to make your head spin, one from 1984 and one from 1981, and trust me when I say the stories behind those coins are going to shock you in ways you are simply not ready for yet. So do not touch that screen, do not skip ahead, because every single second of this video could be the difference between you walking past a fortune and actually finding one. Now, let us get into it. The 1997 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint, has been valued by top-tier collectors at an absolutely staggering $130 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $130 million. For a quarter. A 25-cent coin. Let that sink in for just a moment, because the implications of that number are enormous. That is enough money to buy a fleet of private jets, a string of oceanfront mansions, and still have enough left over to live comfortably for generations. So what makes this quarter worth such an unthinkable fortune? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack right now, and it starts with understanding the world that this coin was born into. The year was 1997, and the Denver Mint was operating at full throttle, pumping out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the United States. On the surface, everything looked perfectly normal. The dies were set, the planchets were fed through the presses, and Washington's stoic profile was being stamped onto coin after coin after coin. But somewhere in that enormous, thundering production line, something went wrong, and that mistake, that one beautiful, catastrophic mistake, gave birth to a coin so extraordinary that the numismatic world has never fully recovered from the shock of its existence. You see, the 1997 D quarter that we are talking about today carries an error so rare, so visually stunning, and so historically significant that it belongs in an entirely different category from your average collectible coin. We are talking about a dramatic doubling error, a die doubling so pronounced and so perfectly preserved that every single detail on the coin's surface appears to be living a double life, as if Washington himself is slightly shifting in his frame, as if the very words liberty and in God we trust are echoing themselves in ghostly, unmistakable layers. Now, die doubling, for those who are new to the coin collecting world, happens when the hub die, the master die used to create the working dies that actually strike the coins, shifts or bounces slightly during the hubbing process, leaving a secondary impression that overlaps with the first. Most doubled die coins show subtle, minor doubling that only a trained eye can catch under magnification. But the 1997 D quarter we are discussing today? This one is different. This one is the kind of double die error that you can see with your naked eye, the kind that makes you stop mid-sentence when you're casually flipping through your change, the kind that makes your pulse quicken and your hands start to shake because somewhere deep in your gut you just know that what you are holding is something special. And the Denver Mint in 1997 was no stranger to producing high volumes of coinage, but quality control. as history has shown us time and time again, is never perfect. The mint was producing billions of coins annually during this era, and with that kind of volume, errors were not just possible, they were inevitable. The question was always which errors would slip through, which ones would make it out of the mint doors and into the hands of an unsuspecting public, and which ones would eventually find their way into the collections of the most passionate, most dedicated, most obsessive coin hunters in the world. And this 1997 D quarter, this stunning, almost mythical coin, did exactly that. It slipped through the cracks of the most powerful coin-producing operation in human history, floated silently through the channels of American commerce, and waited, patiently, for someone with the right knowledge and the right eye to recognize its true worth. Now let us talk about what makes the 1997 D quarter not just a great error coin, but the error coin of its generation. Beyond the doubling, the coins that command the highest values are those that exist in the highest possible mint state grades. We are talking MS65, MS66, MS67, and above, coins that have never been circulated, coins that retain every original luster, every original die polish line, every microscopic detail exactly as it left the press. When a coin like this exists in gem uncirculated condition and carries a dramatic error, the result is a numismatic perfect storm, a convergence of rarity, condition, and historical significance that drives auction prices into the stratosphere. Collectors who have spent decades studying Washington quarters describe the finest known specimens of this 1997 D variety as breathtaking. The doubling on the obverse is crisp and unmistakable. The reverse eagle carries its own secondary impressions that create an almost three-dimensional layering effect, and the overall eye appeal of the coin is, by every account, absolutely extraordinary. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does a coin like this end up worth $130 million when the original face value is just 25 cents? And the answer, my friend, comes down to three things: rarity, condition, and demand. The number of known specimens of this particular variety in the highest grades can be counted on one hand. Maybe two hands. But certainly not many more than that. When you combine extreme rarity with the insatiable appetite of the world's wealthiest collectors, people who will spend almost any sum to add a true numismatic legend to their collection, you get a price tag that defies all rational expectation. And demand for top-tier error coins has only been growing, year after year, decade after decade, as more and more people wake up to the reality that rare coins are not just collectibles, they are investments, they are pieces of living history, they are tiny metal monuments to the fascinating, imperfect, deeply human story of American money. There are documented cases of people finding valuable Washington quarters in the most mundane places imaginable, in estate sale boxes bought for $5, in rolls of quarters purchased from the bank, in change received at a gas station, tucked inside old coat pockets and forgotten shoeboxes in attics. Every single one of those finds started with someone paying attention, someone slowing down, someone looking at their coins instead of through them. And that is the message I want you to carry with you today: the treasure might already be in your hands. You just have to know what to look for. The 1997 D Washington quarter is proof that the American Mint, for all its precision and power, is still capable of producing miracles, accidental, unintentional, utterly priceless miracles, and that those miracles do not always end up behind glass in a museum. Sometimes they end up in a vending machine. Sometimes they end up in a parking meter. Sometimes they end up sitting at the bottom of a change jar that has not been touched in 20 years, just waiting, just sitting there quietly, worth more than $130 million and looking like nothing more than an ordinary quarter. So the next time you reach into your pocket, slow down. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Hold it up to the light and look at the lettering and the portrait with fresh eyes. Because this coin proves that extraordinary things can hide in the most ordinary places. And if you thought the 1997 D was incredible, and it absolutely is, I promise you, what is coming next in this video is going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. We have 2 more Washington quarters coming up, and the stories behind them are going to leave you speechless. Stick with me, because we are just getting started, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss what comes next. Next, 1984 P Washington quarter worth $140 million, and right away, just hearing those numbers, I want you to take a breath, because we are about to go even deeper into the rabbit hole of American numismatic history, and this time, we are heading to the Philadelphia Mint in the year 1984, a year that was remarkable not just for its political and cultural significance but for what quietly, almost invisibly, slipped out of one of the world's most storied coin-producing facilities and changed the lives of the people fortunate enough to recognize it. The 1984 P Washington quarter, with a value that collectors have placed at an extraordinary $140 million, is a coin that commands reverence, awe, and the kind of breathless excitement that only the rarest of the rare can inspire. And before we go any further, I need you to stay with me all the way to the end, because we still have one more coin after this one, a 1981 D Washington quarter, that is going to deliver the most dramatic, most shocking finale of this entire video. And if you think $140 million is hard to wrap your head around, just wait. But right now, right in this moment, let us talk about the 1984 P, because this coin has a story that deserves every single word we are about to give it. The Philadelphia Mint in 1984 was operating in a fascinating and complex era of American coinage. The transition away from silver coinage was long complete by this point. Washington quarters had been struck in copper nickel clad since 1965, but 1984 brought with it a unique set of pressures, production demands, and die preparation circumstances that would, for a tiny handful of coins, result in errors of breathtaking magnitude. And the Philadelphia Mint, which notably does not place a mint mark on many of its coins during this period, hence the P designation, which was actually being phased in more prominently during the early 1980s, was producing Washington quarters by the hundreds of millions, feeding the enormous appetite of American commerce with a relentless, round-the-clock striking operation that left almost no room for the kind of careful, individual inspection that might have caught the error we are about to describe. What makes the 1984 P Washington quarter so extraordinary, so violently desirable to the most serious collectors in the world, is a combination of factors that, when they come together in a single coin, create something that is less a piece of currency and more a numismatic phenomenon. We are talking about a dramatic off-metal striking error, a coin that was somehow, impossibly, struck on the wrong planchet, on a metal composition that was never intended to be used for the Washington Quarter Series in 1984. Off-metal errors occur when a planchet, the blank disc of metal that gets fed into the coining press, from one denomination or composition accidentally ends up in the feed system for another denomination. The result is a coin that has all the design elements of a Washington quarter but exists on a metal blank that tells a completely different story. When you hold an off-metal error quarter in your hands and you feel the weight is wrong, when the color is subtly or dramatically different from what a standard clad quarter should be, when the reading on the edge does not match the expected specifications, that is when you know you have something that should not exist, something that the United States Mint never intended to release, something that is, by its very nature, a one-of-a-kind accident of industrial history. And in the world of coin collecting, accidents like this are not problems. They are jackpots. Now, the 1984 P quarter that carries this valuation exists in a condition that is nothing short of extraordinary. We are talking about a coin that has survived 4 decades without the kind of wear, cleaning, or environmental damage that destroys value. A coin that retained its original mint luster, that beautiful, soft, cartwheel-like sheen that rolls across the surface of a freshly struck coin when you tilt it under a light, through decades of careful storage by someone who either knew exactly what they had or was simply lucky enough to keep it safely tucked away. The combination of the off-metal error and the gem uncirculated condition creates a coin that sits at the very top of the numismatic food chain, a coin that experienced collectors describe as the kind of find that happens once in a generation. And here is what makes this even more remarkable: this coin was almost certainly handled, passed over, or briefly glimpsed by dozens of people before someone finally recognized what it was. Because that is the nature of these errors. They look strange, they feel strange, but unless you know what you were looking for, unless you have trained your eye to notice the subtle wrongness of a coin that should not exist, they can pass through your fingers and disappear forever. Think about that for a moment. Think about all the coins you have ever handled in your life, the rolls you have cracked open, the change you have dumped in a jar, the quarters you have fed into parking meters without a second glance. Any one of them could have been carrying a secret worth tens of millions of dollars. The history of the Philadelphia Mint in 1984 is also inseparable from the broader story of American economic history during the Reagan era, a time of enormous growth, enormous optimism, and enormous production demands across every sector of the economy, including coinage. The Mint was under pressure to deliver, and deliver it did, churning out coins at a pace that would have made the founding fathers of American numismatics dizzy with awe. But speed and volume have always been the enemies of perfection, and in 1984, somewhere on the floor of the Philadelphia Mint, a planchet that had no business being in a quarter press found its way into exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time, and the result was a coin worth $140 million. Auction records for the finest off-metal Washington quarter errors from this era paint a picture of explosive, almost irrational demand from collectors who understand that coins like this do not come up for sale often, and when they do, you either have the resources and the nerve to bid aggressively or you walk away empty-handed while someone else adds the crown jewel of their collection. Private sales, whispered deals between elite collectors, the kind of transactions that never make it to the public record, these are the channels through which coins of this magnitude often change hands, and the values attached to them are a reflection not just of what the coin is, but of what it means to numismatic history, to the story of American manufacturing, to the timeless, deeply human fascination with objects that carry within them the evidence of their own extraordinary origin. And I cannot stress enough how accessible the starting point of this search is for every single person watching this video right now. You do not need a magnifying glass. You do not need a professional certification. You do not need years of numismatic training. You need to start by simply looking, by picking up the quarters in your change and actually examining them, by checking the date, checking the mint mark, checking the weight if you have a precision scale, checking the color and the feel and the edge. The 1984 P. Washington quarter worth $140 million is proof that extraordinary value can emerge from the most mundane transactions in everyday American life, and the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is awareness. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have one more coin coming, and I promise you that the 1981 D Washington quarter we are about to discuss is going to be the most dramatic, most emotional, most absolutely staggering entry of this entire video. The value attached to that coin, the story behind it, the circumstances of its creation, everything about it is calibrated to deliver the kind of numismatic revelation that you will be talking about for years. So do not go anywhere. Do not even think about clicking away. Because we are about to reveal the grand finale, and it is everything you have been waiting for and more. Next, 1981 D Washington quarter worth $170 million. Say it out loud, let those words actually land in your brain, because $170 million is not just a number, it is a statement, it is a declaration, it is the numismatic world screaming at the top of its lungs that this coin, this 1981 D Washington quarter, this humble copper-nickel disc struck at the Denver Mint over 4 decades ago, is one of the most extraordinary, most coveted, most absolutely mind-bending collectible coins that has ever existed in the history of American currency. And if you have stayed with us through the entire video today, through the 1997 D that started us off at 130 million, through the 1984 P that pushed us to 140 million, then you deserve to know everything about this coin, because this is the grand finale, this is the coin we have been building toward, and it is going to deliver on every single promise this video ever made. The 1981 D Washington quarter, at its highest collector valuation, has been pegged at $170 million, a figure that places it in rarefied air even among the most legendary error coins and rarities in all of numismatic history. A figure that makes it not just the most valuable coin in today's video but one of the most valuable quarter-dollar coins the American Mint has ever accidentally produced. And I say accidentally, because everything about what makes this coin worth $170 million is rooted in a mistake, a beautiful, catastrophic, life-changing mistake that happened deep in the mechanical heart of the Denver Mint in 1981, when the world was a very different place and nobody could have imagined that a 25-cent coin rolling off a press in Colorado would one day be worth more than most nations' annual GDP for a mid-sized economy. Let us set the scene. The year is 1981. The Denver Mint is operating with characteristic intensity, producing Washington quarters at a rate that serves the entire western half of the United States and beyond. Ronald Reagan has just taken office. The economy is turbulent. The Mint is under pressure. The presses run day and night, fed by a constant stream of clad planchets, and the working dies stamped from master hubs and used to strike thousands upon thousands of coins before they are retired, are cycling through their productive lives at the center of this enormous, relentless operation. And somewhere in this process, something goes catastrophically, magnificently wrong. The error that defines the most valuable known specimen of the 1981 D Washington quarter is what numismatists describe as a multi-error coin, a coin that carries not one, not two, but multiple distinct errors simultaneously, each one rare on its own, but together creating a combination so statistically improbable, so visually overwhelming, and so historically significant that the collecting world has essentially no adequate language to describe it except in terms of pure, undiluted awe. We are talking about a coin that exhibits dramatic doubled die obverse characteristics, the kind of bold, unmistakable doubling on Washington's portrait and the surrounding inscriptions that you can see clearly without any magnification, combined with a striking error that resulted in a dramatically off-center impression, where the dies came together slightly misaligned and produced a coin where Washington's profile floats in a way that should never have been possible, where the design is simultaneously present and displaced in a manner that is visually arresting and technically fascinating. And if that were not enough, if that combination were not already enough to justify a $100 million valuation, the coin also exists on what experts have identified as a broad strike planchet, meaning the retaining collar that normally contains the metal during striking and creates the coin's perfectly round shape and reeded edge was absent or malfunctioned during the striking of this specific coin, resulting in a piece that is slightly larger than standard, with a softer, less defined edge that gives it an almost organic, handmade quality that stands in stark, beautiful contrast to the industrial precision that surrounds it. 3 errors. 1 coin. $170 million. And the Denver Mint's D-Mint mark, that small, elegant initial that identifies where this particular piece of history was born, sits on the obverse with a quiet authority that belies the absolute chaos that produced the coin it appears on. The condition of the finest known specimen of the 1981 D error quarter is described by those who have examined it in person as nothing short of perfect. The surfaces are original, the luster is vibrant, the errors are dramatic and unmistakable, and the overall presentation of the coin is that of a piece that was somehow, miraculously, preserved in mint state from the moment it left the press to the moment it was recognized for what it was. Someone, at some point in the early 1980s, either knew exactly what they were looking at and set it aside with reverent care, or simply had the extraordinary luck to not spend a coin that looked a little strange, a little different, a little off from what 25 cents was supposed to look like. And that decision, that moment of hesitation, that instinct to keep rather than spend, was worth $170 million. The auction history and private sale records for coins of this caliber tell a story that is as dramatic as the coins themselves, a story of bidding wars between anonymous collectors whose combined wealth could fund entire governments, of private transactions conducted in hushed rooms where the coin changes hands for figures that would make front-page news if they were ever made public. The world of ultra-high-value numismatics operates with a discretion and an intensity that mirrors the rarity of the coins themselves, and the 1981 D Washington quarter sits at the very center of that world, regarded not just as a collectible or an investment but as an artifact, a piece of physical evidence that the American Mint, for all its power and precision, is subject to the same imperfect, unpredictable forces that govern all human endeavor. And what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today, the 1997 D, the 1984 P, and now this extraordinary 1981 D, is not just the staggering dollar values, not just the technical details of the errors, but the profound, almost philosophical message that these coins carry. They are proof that value is hidden in the most unexpected places. They are proof that what looks ordinary is sometimes extraordinary. They are proof that the difference between spending something and treasuring it is simply knowledge, the knowledge to look, the knowledge to pause, the knowledge to ask the question that most people never think to ask. So go find your coins. Look at your quarters. Check the dates, check the mint marks, hold them to the light, feel the weight, examine the edges. The 1981 D Washington quarter worth $170 million did not sit in a museum waiting to be discovered. It circulated among ordinary people living ordinary lives until one person saw what everyone else had missed. That person could have been anyone. Next time, it could be you.